Do you place your faith in sincerity? Do you believe in the sanctity of an oath? This is the first error of a man destined for ruin. Look upon the world as it truly is, not as you wish it to be. It is not moved by benevolence, but by the invisible levers of control that pull the hearts of the vulgar. Trust is not a gift. It is a breach in your armor that you yourself provide to your adversary. He who kneels at your feet to swear his devotion this day is the very man who, on the morrow, shall plot your downfall with the coldest of hearts. You fear being manipulated? Commendable. That dread is the only remaining sign that your spirit is still awake in a world of sleepers. Yet do you possess the fortitude to grasp the blade I now offer? I shall unbolt the forbidden gates to the labyrinth of the human mind. Mark these words well, for they are the foundation of all rule. He who seeks to deceive will always find someone who will allow himself to be deceived. Welcome to the reality of the stripped soul.
The anatomy of the human soul. The shadows within. Why is the human animal so easily led to the slaughter? Why do they offer their necks to the yoke with such pathetic readiness? It is because the nature of men is fundamentally wretched. They are ungrateful, fickle, false, cowardly, and covetous. They drape themselves in the finery of morality and honor, yet these are but masks for a soul that trembles before its own shadow. To hack the mind, you must not look at what they say, but at the three rusted nails that hold their spirit together: insecurity, greed, and the hollow hunger for recognition. The vulgar multitude possesses a soul that loathes the weight of its own freedom. Freedom is chaos. Freedom is the terrifying responsibility of one's own ruin. Thus, men would rather submit to a decisive tyrant than live in the howling wind of uncertainty. They seek a master to tell them the sun is rising. When you create a fear, you do not merely oppress them, you become the sole proprietor of their hope. By providing the order they crave, you own the very breath they draw. Never forget the sordid gravity of the material world. The bonds of love are broken at every opportunity for a man's own advantage, for men are baser than the beasts they hunt. A man may eventually forgive the execution of his kin, but mark this: men more quickly forget the death of their father than the loss of their patrimony. Offer them the scent of profit, the glimmer of a golden coin, or the promise of a neighbor's land, and you will see them trot into the cage of their own accord. Their greed is the leash. You need only choose when to pull. The crowd is a shallow pool, reflecting only the surface of things. They judge and move generally more by the eye than by the hand, for while every man is permitted to see your facade, only a rare few are ever permitted to touch your reality. They hunger to be seen, to be honored, to be respected by the very masters who despise them. Grant them a glossy appearance of importance, a title, a nod, a hollow ceremony, and they will grant you their very lives in exchange for the illusion. In this theater of shadows, remember the ultimate law of the prince: the truth is never as important as the appearance of truth. Welcome to the laboratory of the soul. Now, let us begin the surgery.
Chapter 1. The Fox's Mirror, the art of gaslighting. A prudent ruler must learn to counterfeit his very soul, for to be always good is the shortest path to ruin among those who are not. To govern effectively, you must be a master of the mask, a great pretender and dissembler who knows when to depart from the path of the saints. You must take up the nature of the fox, for while the lion may terrify the wolves, only the fox possesses the sharp eyes to see the snares hidden in the tall grass. Gaslighting is not the crude labor of a common liar. It is the architect's mastery over the very foundations of another man's reality. It is the systematic deconstruction of a subject's certainty, a siege laid not against the walls of a city, but against the walls of the intellect. By shifting the stones of their world, you ensure they can no longer find a foothold in the truth of their own eyes. Sow your seeds of doubt with an absolute icy composure, for the mind of the victim is a shallow pool that reflects whatever storm you choose to conjure. When a subject begins to whisper to the shadows, questioning if his own mind has betrayed him, he has already surrendered his sword to your will. You possess no obligation to be correct in your facts. You need only be absolute in making them feel their own error. In this theater of the mind, your victory is found in their confusion, for a man who cannot trust himself must by necessity trust his master. Never forget that in the eyes of the vulgar, the final result is the only judge of the means used, and thus the truth is never as important as the appearance of truth. Let them call it madness, you shall call it the ultimate order.
Chapter 2. The Lion's Slap, the Rule of Severe Injury. The weak-minded believe that through benevolence they may secure the hearts of the vulgar. They are deceived. Kindness is a currency that devalues the moment it is spent, for men are ungrateful and fickle by their very nature. To seek loyalty through sweetness is to hand your adversary the dagger with which he will eventually strike you. If you must strike, do not tap. You must learn to distribute injury with a finality that leaves no room for hope. Mark this rule of power, for it is written in the blood of fallen empires. Men ought either to be well treated or crushed, because they can avenge themselves of lighter injuries, of more serious ones they cannot. Therefore the injury that is to be done to a man ought to be of such a kind that one does not stand in fear of revenge. A small wound leaves a man with the strength to plot. A total ruin leaves him only the strength to weep. If you must punish, do it with such overwhelming force that the victim can never again stand to look you in the eye, let alone lift a blade against your shadow. Cruelty is a medicine that must be swallowed in a single potent dose. He who uses cruelty well applies it at one blow to ensure his security, and then persists in it no longer. This well-used severity brings a long and lasting peace to the state, for it extinguishes the sparks of rebellion before they can become a forest fire. The mob will cry out in the moment of the blow, but in the silence that follows, they will find the order they secretly crave. Conversely, half-hearted mercy is the mother of all ruin. To be kind in the face of defiance is merely to nourish the seeds of insurrection. The prince who hesitates to strike hard is forced to keep the knife in his hand every day, unsettling his subjects and ensuring his own eventual downfall. It is a singular madness to fear the reproach of cruelty, if that cruelty keeps your people united and loyal. Better to be a lion that slaps once and reigns for an age, than a lamb that bleats for mercy and is slaughtered in an hour.
Chapter 3: The Management of Compassion, Love Bombing, and the Utility of Dread. There are those who believe that a ruler must always be a fountain of kindness. They are children playing with fire. If you overwhelm your subjects with constant benefit, they soon grow bloated and forget the hand that provides. A wise prince administers his graces as a physician administers a potent drug, drop by drop. Bestow your benefits little by little, so that the flavor of them may last longer, and the people remain in a state of constant, hopeful expectation. Make your smallest gesture appear as a magnificent favor, for this is how you weave the invisible web that binds them to your will. Understand this truest of truths. Love is a bond of obligation, which these miserable creatures break whenever it serves their self-interest. To rely on the affection of the vulgar is to build your fortress upon shifting sands. Men are ungrateful, fickle, and deceptive. They are your devoted servants while the danger is far off, but the moment necessity approaches, they turn their backs upon you. Love is held by a thread that snaps at the first touch of greed. But fear is a debt that is always paid. It is maintained by a dread of punishment which never fails to command the soul. Do not waste your life striving for a love that carries with it the seed of contempt. A prince must base himself on that which is in his own control, not on the fickle whims of others. To rule is to balance the scale of the spirit. While you should avoid being hated, you must never shrink from being formidable. Mark this law of power well, for it is the anchor of every stable throne. It is much safer to be feared than loved, if one of the two must be lacking. For men have less hesitation in offending one who is beloved than one who is feared. The feast is over. Now let the silence of their own terror remind them who is master. In the management of the human soul, mercy is a tool, but dread is the foundation. Proceed now to the final reckoning. The grand finale, a warning from the abyss. Now you possess the science. You have seen the hidden threads that bind the hearts of men. Tell me, do you feel the cold fire of power beginning to stir within your veins? Or do you tremble, cold and hollow, as you realize that you yourself have been but a puppet dancing to a tune you did not compose? There is no middle way in the architecture of the soul. You are either the hand that pulls the wire or the wooden limb that twitches in obedience.